Connected on Cypress Street and on YouTube. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to Local News Live here on AOC Community Media. Okay, I was making sure I had the mics off. I'm kind of all over the place this morning, Jen. We've got Jen McFarland in with us, volunteering to be our reader this morning on the program. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning.
Normally, we're just going to kind of roll here. We've got local news, state news from the Acadiana Advocate. We do this every weekday at 9 a.m. as a service to the vision impaired and those who don't have access to the print news cycle. I'm going to kind of just let you roll with it however you will, and I'll be here listening on YouTube and Cypress Street.
Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.
Me too.
Good morning, everyone. Here we go. The first article is Unacceptable. Protesters decry lack of transparency in teen's death by Megan Wyatt. Activists stood beside the family of Kwan Bobby Charles as the sun set Wednesday over the Iberia Parish Courthouse, which is also home to the law enforcement agency investigating the death of the Black 15-year-old. Speaking to a crowd of about 100 protesters, the group demanded justice and accountability in a case that's gaining national attention because of a graphic photo shared by Bobby's family that's eerily similar to a 1955 image of Emmett Till, a Black teenager who was lynched. It's funny that we have to come to the steps of the courthouse to find justice because justice for 400 years hasn't found us, said Jamal Taylor, a founding member of the Village and Stand Black, and who is also involved in the Lafayette branch of the NAACP. It's funny today that we have to come here and demand that people be arrested for the brutal murder of a young man who was 15 years old. Folks, peace demands justice. Their protest chants ranging from no justice, no peace to Black power fell on mostly deaf ears Wednesday because the courthouse and offices inside were closed for the Veterans Day holiday. Event organizers said Wednesday's gathering was just the first step in ensuring Bobby's case isn't forgotten. I'm working, family spokesperson Selena Charles told the crowd. I'm not only working for my cousin, I'm working for all of us. Family members say Bobby left his father's Baldwin home without permission on the afternoon of October 30th with a 17-year-old friend and his friend's mother. The family reported him missing later that night after unsuccessful attempts to reach him by phone. Bobby's body was discovered by officers on November 3rd in rural Iberia Parish. A few days later, a graphic photo began circulating and prompting outrage online. The image, allegedly of Bobby, shows the mutilated face of a Black boy who has several open skin wounds and disfigurement so severe to his lips that several teeth are visible. The family said they were told Bobby was found face down in a creek near a sugarcane field, but they are seeking an independent autopsy because of the condition of his body. A GoFundMe has raised more than $120,000 in 4 days for Bobby's family to cover cost of an independent autopsy and burial expenses. The online fundraiser depicts an image of Emmett Till, the Chicago 14-year-old who was lynched by white supremacists in 1955 while visiting family in Mississippi, beside the alleged photo of Bobby. The family has retained civil rights attorneys Ron Haley, Diedrich Moore, and Chase Tritchell. In a prepared statement, the lawyers asked for the preliminary findings of the coroner as to the cause of death and answers from the Baldwin Police Department as to why an Amber Alert was never issued in the days that the teen was missing. Due to the lack of transparency, collective indifference, and moral failings of law enforcement, Bobby's family has been forced to undertake the serious financial cost and enormous emotional stress of arranging for an independent autopsy in order to get any answers about Bobby's death, they say. They said, the cost of this independent autopsy was not just financial for Bobby's family. It has greatly worsened the grieving process by delaying when they can put their child to rest. The ACLU of Louisiana on Wednesday demanded a full independent investigation into Bobby's death. The disrespect and lack of transparency demonstrated by local officials in response to Bobby's tragic and suspicious death is unacceptable, Alana Odoms-Hebert, the organizer's executive director, said in a statement. We join the family in demanding a full and transparent investigation into the circumstances surrounding Bobby's death. This family is grieving and deserves answers, not disrespect and stonewalling. We send our deepest condolences to Bobby's family during this terrible time and will continue to stand in solidarity with them and all those demanding justice. Bobby's family has said their concerns were not taken seriously by the Baldwin Police Department the night he was reported missing, and their questions have gone largely unanswered in the days since his body was discovered by deputies with the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office. Activists have echoed the sentiment. We are not detectives. We don't work for a police department. We get that, said Andre Arsenault, a Lafayette activist who started a GoFundMe for the Charles family. But there has to be something more that could be said. The family just wants some responsibility taken by the police department. They were told he was probably at the football game. If a white 15-year-old had been missing even for 2 hours, there would have been an Amber Alert. The family wouldn't have been brushed off. It is unclear if Bobby's case met Amber Alert criteria, which includes law enforcement confirming a child has been abducted and is in serious danger, according to Louisiana State Police. Protocol also requires that there is enough descriptive information available about the child, abductor, and/or suspect's vehicle to believe an immediate broadcast alert will help the case. Everyone involved in the Louisiana Amber Alert Plan is extremely serious about each and every Amber Alert request that is submitted, the state police website says. Each one is reviewed thoroughly, and if an error is made, it will be on the side of the child's safety. Lady Fontenette Brown, member of the Iberia Parish Council, told the protesters gathered Wednesday that she will personally hold law enforcement accountable in the case. I'm here on these steps to let you guys know. I give you my word, Brown said. I will make sure that our people receive the justice that is due in this situation. Spokespeople for the Baldwin Police Department, Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office, and Iberia Parish Coroner's Office have declined to discuss specifics of the case. On Tuesday, Catherine Breaux of the Sheriff's Office said multiple people had been interviewed and physical evidence is being processed in the case. The Sheriff's Office is doing everything possible, Breaux said. We want to do a thorough investigation, and we are doing everything possible to do that. Anyone with information concerning the case is urged to contact Detective Jared Spurlock of the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office at 337-369-3711. The next article is St. Martin Parish Court Refuses Lake Martin Case, Tour Business Government Clash Over Access by Megan Wyatt. The Louisiana Supreme Court announced Tuesday it would not hear a case between the St. Martin Parish government and a business that's highlighted public access problems at Lake Martin. Parish government asked the state's highest court to review the case after narrowly losing an appeal in August. The St. Martin Parish Council unanimously voted in September to take its lawsuit to the Supreme Court in an effort to protect Lake Martin's wildlife and access for recreational users. The council's decision was supported by an activist group known as Friends of Lake Martin, which has pushed the parish for years to take action against Brian Champagne, who operates 2 swamp tour businesses on the shore of the lake in violation of local zoning ordinance. Haywood Woody Martin, a board member for the nonprofit organization, said Tuesday's decision by the Supreme Court has been met with disappointment. We're representing the public interest in preserving the natural resource, Martin said. We're going to push the parish and the state to exercise their authority to protect the scenic beauty and ecological health of Lake Martin for the enjoyment of present and future generations. Parish leaders and outdoor enthusiasts have argued that Champagne's businesses block public access to the lake and could damage the environment by operating on the shore. It's the reason local ordinance doesn't allow construction of permanent structures in the first place. In April 2019, a district judge denied the parish's petition for injunctive relief against his businesses, Champagne's Cajun Swamp Tours and the Wharf on Lake Martin, because Champagne had obtained the necessary permits through the parish and made substantial investments. A 5-judge panel of the Louisiana Third Circuit Court of Appeal in Lake Charles agreed with the April 2019 ruling that Champagne's businesses could continue operating. Even though the zone ordinance prohibits it, In a dissenting opinion, also published in the appeals court August ruling, 2 of the 5 judges laid out their support for the parish's injunction lawsuit, calling out the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries for not intervening to preserve the body of water the office is tasked with maintaining. Champagne said Tuesday's decision by the Supreme Court marked the end of a lengthy legal journey. "I'm glad it's over," Champagne said. "It's been a long battle, but I'm glad it's finally finished with." Although the case may be closed for Champagne, there are still unanswered questions that remain at Lake Martin. The recent litigation indirectly complicated the relationship between private landowners and government entities that have expressed concern over liabilities and responsibilities at the lake. There are now barricades and ropes blocking access to parts of the lake, including a public boat launch that closed earlier this year after landowners couldn't come to an agreement with parish and state leaders. "What happens next is kind of critical," Martin said. "This is a really valuable resource to have so close to Lafayette and the other surrounding communities here." And take a little sip here. On to the next story. Smitty's Wings set to open at its new location Thursday. Owner touts drive-through edition by Julia Gilbo. Local wing stop and restaurant Smitty's Wings will move into its new location Thursday, owner Craig Smith said. Currently, at 3822 West Congress Street, the restaurant will be moving to 2424 Ambassador Caffrey Parkway, which at one time housed Hardee's Restaurant and other eateries. The move will give the restaurant a drive-through, something Smith said he couldn't do at his current space. "I'll be the only wing restaurant in the city of Lafayette that has a drive-through," said Smith. "COVID pushed me into it. I like my location, but I need a drive-through, and there's no way I can make a drive-through here." In coordination with the move, Smith said they are also planning to expand the restaurant's menu, adding daiquiris and other items such as BLTs and quesadillas. "He'll be in an area with a few drive-through windows," he said. "We'll be the only daiquiri shop from Johnson Street to Scott," said Smith. "I think it's going to do good. There's no drive-through on this side of town. I have a lot of customers who come to my restaurant who live by the Acadiana High School area who have said, 'Oh, great, we'll come and get our daiquiris there so we don't have to drive across town.'" It's the latest move for Smith, the New Iberia native who has been in the restaurant business since 1985. He started as a drive-through in New Iberia before moving to several locations across Lafayette. After working in the oil and gas industry for 18 years, when Weatherford Drilling bought one of his restaurant locations, Smith took an early retirement and decided to open up his own wing shop to keep himself busy. "I was bored, so I opened up Smitty's," he said. The next story is Crime Blotter Advocate staff reports. Man accused of negligent homicide in fatal crash. Rayne police have arrested a man in connection with a fatal crash last month, according to KATC TV. Blaine Anthony Daigle, 38, was arrested Wednesday afternoon and is facing 1 count of negligent homicide. Authorities responded to the 3-vehicle crash on LA 35 north of Rayne about 6:40 a.m., October 27th. The crash claimed the life of 1 woman. Blaine was booked into the Acadiana Parish Sheriff's Office without incident, police said. Police chief quarantines after virus diagnosis. Opelousas Police Chief Martin McClendon announced Wednesday that he would be self-quarantining after a recent COVID-19 diagnosis. McClendon shared the news in a Facebook post on Wednesday morning. He said he has taken all necessary steps to protect those he works with and those closest to him. "I want to take a moment and say publicly how proud I am of our commanding officers and our officers in the field," McClendon wrote. "They have not missed a beat throughout all of these trying times, and with my current condition, they have been hard at work, bravely fighting to see that the streets of our city are safe. Opelousas is in excellent hands." The next story is plane crash suits restricted to federal court by Claire Taylor. Lawsuits filed by the survivors and families of victims of a December plane crash in Lafayette will be heard only in federal court. U.S. District Judge Michael Juneau of the Western District of Louisiana ruled in September that all lawsuits filed in a state court stemming from, U.S. District Judge Michael Juneau of the Western District of Louisiana ruled in September that all lawsuits filed in state court stemming from the crash of a small twin-engine Piper turboprop plane are halted and instead will be considered in federal court. The plane carrying a pilot and 5 passengers crashed December 28, shortly after takeoff from Lafayette Regional Airport on its way to the Atlanta area where LSU was playing in the Peach Bowl. Only 1 passenger survived. A woman on the ground also was injured when the plane struck her vehicle. Sports broadcaster Carly McCord Ensminger, the wife of Stephen Ensminger Jr., the son of LSU's offensive coordinator, was among those killed in the crash. Also killed were passengers Gretchen Vincent, Michael Walker Vincent, and Robert Von Crisp II, along with the pilot Ian Biggs. One passenger, Stephen Wade Burzas, was the sole survivor, suffering burns over much of his body. Christy Daniel Britt was in her vehicle in a parking lot near a U.S. post office when the plane struck her vehicle, causing it to flip and catch fire. She suffered burns over about 30% of her body. In May, the 2 survivors and families of the passengers killed in the crash sued in 15th Judicial District Court the plane's owners. The pilot's estate and company is insuring the plane. They followed in July with lawsuits in federal court after Endurance American Insurance Company sought to cap damages at the $5 million policy limit, prevent additional lawsuits, and have the court decide how the money would be dispersed. Attorneys for the families, victims, and survivors alleged in court filings the insurance company took advantage of their notice of intent to file suit in state court and filed documents in federal court electronically before state court opened. Endurance American wanted all lawsuits funneled through federal court. Juneau dismissed a motion by Endurance for partial dismissal of the lawsuits for failure to make a claim. The lawsuits also named Cheyenne Partners LLC, Eagle Air LLC, Global Data Systems Inc., Southern Lifestyle Development Co. LLC, SLD Aircraft LLC, the Travelers Indemnity Company of Connecticut, Rodney Savoy, Charles Vincent, and Ian E. Biggs' estate. Next story, COVID-19 coronavirus, the latest. Governor AG to face off in court. High-stakes hearing set over Edwards coronavirus restrictions by Sam Carlin. Louisiana's Democratic governor and Republican Attorney General are set to face off in a high-stakes court battle Thursday to decide whether the state's coronavirus restrictions, including a statewide mask mandate and social distancing requirements of bars and restaurants, should be revoked entirely for a week. Governor John Bel Edwards has so far refused to cancel his restrictions, despite House Republican lawmakers sending him a petition last month ordering him to do so. Instead, he's asking 19th Judicial District Judge William Morvant of Baton Rouge to declare the petition null and void. Attorney General Jeff Landry, who is a frequent opponent of the governor, is defending House Speaker Clay Schexnayder and the Republican lawmakers, and is asking the same judge to force Edwards to comply with the petition. That would mean revoking the social distancing requirements, limits on large gatherings, and a mask mandate for 7 days, a time frame aimed at forcing the governor's hand on making changes sought by lawmakers. The hearing, slated for Thursday morning via Zoom, also comes as the U.S. experiences a new surge in COVID-19 that has caused cases to soar to levels not seen since the pandemic began. The White House Coronavirus Task Force warned Louisiana leaders this week that the virus is spreading rapidly across the U.S., including the Sun Belt, where restrictions have been lifted in recent weeks. Louisiana's health leaders have said the state is starting to see early signs of a similar wave. Edwards, in an interview following a Veterans Day ceremony in Old South Baton Rouge on Wednesday, pointed to Texas, where cases, hospitalizations, and deaths have surged, and where officials are wheeling in trailers to serve as morgues in El Paso to accommodate a dramatic increase in deaths. While I pray it doesn't happen here in Louisiana, we are not immune from that, Edwards said, noting Louisiana already experienced spikes that overwhelmed hospitals. It is inexplicable and it is unconscionable that people would both insist on the one hand that we open up our economy to the maximum degree that we can, and yet they don't want to wear a mask. It just doesn't work that way. You can't get through it just because a few people in the legislature said they're tired of it. Landry has in recent days blasted the governor's restrictions and argued he is violating the law by refusing to cancel his rules, which the petition signed by 65 of 68 House Republicans ordered. Speaking recently before a group of Livingston Parish residents fed up with the rules, Landry praised South Dakota, which he had just visited, because leaders there didn't lock down residents. Leaders in the Dakotas have refused to implement many of the restrictions put in place by Edwards and have also seen the nation's worst rate of death over the past month. In response to questions about the virus and the court case, Landry's office pointed to a statement Landry issued, arguing the governor doesn't have police powers to enforce restrictions unless the legislature gives them to him, and pushing back against the governor's claims the petition is unconstitutional. Thursday's hearing is not about undermining the validity of public health precautions. Rather, it is about upholding the very fabric of our Louisiana Constitution, Landry said in the statement. Statute clearly outlines that the governor cannot ignore or reject the checks and balances that underpin our government. If we allow this to happen once, when will it stop? The governor has already successfully defended his restrictions from at least 3 lawsuits, including in one state and 2 federal district courts. Jimmy Faircloth, the former top attorney to Governor Bobby Jindal, who filed the 2 federal complaints on behalf of bar owners, appealed the rulings and said he is awaiting a decision. Judge Morvant last week declined a request by Landry's office to block the governor from extending his coronavirus restrictions until he compiles with the petition, clearing the way for the governor to extend the Phase 3 rules for another 4 weeks. Lawyers for both sides of the case between Edwards and House Republicans have filed hundreds of documents in recent days. Landry is asking the judge to dismiss the case on a host of procedural grounds, including that neither the legislature nor the House can be sued. Edwards' administration argues that the law allowing House Republicans to issue the petition, an obscure statute passed in 2003 amid the SARS pandemic, is unconstitutional because it involves only one of 2 chambers of the legislature. Edwards said Thursday the legislature is a co-equal branch of government, but one body of the legislature is not. The governor's attorneys also contend the Republicans didn't issue the petition in consultation with public health officials because the Louisiana Department of Health told them it was a bad idea and that they violated open meetings laws by crafting and signing the petition in private. Landry's office has pushed back against those points. Republican lawmakers in September held a closed-door meeting with Edwards' administration, including health leaders, seeking to meet the requirement they consult with the health authority. At the outset of that meeting, Edwards' top attorney, Matthew Block, suggested he disagreed the meeting was really about consulting with the health officials and instead was a check-the-box thing, according to a recording of the meeting entered into the court record. In the governor's press room on the 4th floor of the state capitol, lawmakers grilled the health officials about whether the cases, deaths, and other data reported by the state was legitimate and why they were restricting the number of people at high school football games. Representative Larry Bagley, a Stonewall Republican who chairs the House Health and Welfare Committee, told Edwards' team that his 90-year-old mother probably will never go out of the house without a mask again because she is scared of the virus. But again, if I want to go out and shake hands, or if I want to go out to a bar and drink, or if I want to go to a football game and sit next to Tony Bacala, that's my choice, Bagley said in the meeting. We go home and go to the coffee shop, and we have neighbors who ask, "Why are you doing this?" I don't know anyone who's got COVID, he added. Representative Dodie Horton, a Houghton Republican, told the Edwards administration in the same meeting that in Bossier Parish, we don't wear masks very often. People can make their own decisions for their own health care needs, Horton said. Very rarely do people wear it correctly. Horton said in an interview Thursday she chooses not to wear a mask because her brother-in-law, a physician, told her most people don't wear them correctly or touch them too much, reducing their effectiveness. She said her constituents simply want the right to choose. The Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has recommended for months that people wear masks to reduce the spread of the virus. Bagley and Scheck-Snyder did not respond to requests for comment Thursday. Representative Tony Bacala, the Prairieville Republican who orchestrated the meeting between GOP lawmakers and the governor, also wrote an email to House Republicans 10 days before the special session that began in late September, acknowledging it was possible the petition could get bogged down in court if the governor sued. He also said Scheck-Snyder, Republican Gonzalez, was not opposed to the petition, which at that point was drafted to lift restrictions for 14 days. Scheck-Snyder and Senate President Paige Cortez, Republican Lafayette, both have raised concerns about the petition's constitutionality. At the end of the special session, after Republican lawmakers appeared unlikely to make any progress on their goal of gaining power over Edwards' emergency powers, Scheck-Snyder rallied Republican support for the 7-day petition. Pardon all the stumbles, folks. We're going to the next one. Vaccine going to take time. Experts urge patience during process by Emily Woodruff. The announcement from drug manufacturer Pfizer Inc. on Monday that its coronavirus vaccine could soon be ready for federal approval has placed a renewed focus on the next challenge of the pandemic, distributing the billions of vaccine doses needed to eventually return to life to normal. While the federal government and private pharmaceutical giants are shepherding the drugs through vaccine approval and manufacturing, Louisiana and other states will handle the daunting task of getting the vaccine into the waiting arms of their residents. That process is a complicated logistics puzzle that involves ultra-cold freezers, regimented doses, and volumes of record keeping. It includes partnerships with regional hospital systems and potentially national drugstore chains, and requires policies on who should get the vaccine first. And it includes a timeline as well as a supply of potential vaccine doses that is still uncertain. Louisiana medical experts this week said residents need to be informed of the process, but also stressed the need for patience and continued adherence to the coronavirus restrictions. It's going to take time, said Dr. Frank Welch, medical director for emergency preparedness at the Louisiana Department of Health. We've got some great news out of Pfizer the other day, but it really doesn't change how the next 2 or 3 months will go. A very challenging process. Earlier this week, Pfizer offered some of the most hopeful news of the pandemic. Early data from its COVID-19 vaccine trials shows the vaccine may be more than 90% effective. Pending federal approval, Louisiana Health Department officials said they expect the first shipments of the vaccine to arrive in the first half of December for distribution to medical workers. The federal government, through a multi-agency public-private partnership known as Operation Warp Speed, will be charged with doling out approved vaccines to each state based on population. But decisions about who gets it first and how it's distributed will be left up to state officials. Louisiana began putting together a team to create the vaccine playbook in April, based on guidelines from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and its Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. Each state's plan varies. Florida, for example, will ship doses directly to healthcare providers. Georgia leaves the vaccine administration logistics up to local districts. Texas, which just reached 1 million coronavirus cases, submitted a plan that is 38 pages long. Louisiana's is 125 pages. All are subject to change as information about the vaccine emerges. Many unknowns surrounding the vaccines have made it difficult to nail down specific plans. For example, it's unclear if the Pfizer vaccine is effective only in certain age populations. And these are only the plans in the U.S., where the Trump administration has allocated $6 billion so far just for contracts with drug companies to ensure the U.S. is among the first to receive doses. Though Pfizer's vaccine is the furthest along, Operation Warp Speed has distribution deals with at least 6 late-stage vaccine candidates. Each drug has different storage and administration requirements. The Pfizer vaccine requires transportation and storage at ultra-cold temperatures, about 94 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. Many small hospitals and vaccine distribution sites, such as pharmacies, don't have freezers that get that cold, so the state or larger hospitals will need to process them. At normal refrigeration temperature, the Pfizer vaccine must be used in 5 days at room temperature. It's good for 2. Most of the promising vaccine candidates, Pfizer included, must be given in 2 doses with exactly 21 or 28 days in between, depending on the vaccine. These vaccines have unique characteristics that make it a very challenging process to deliver, said Susan Hassig, a Tulane University epidemiologist and an advisor working on the Louisiana Department of Health's vaccine distribution plan. These are not simple. Line them up and boom, 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 jab in the arm. Easy peasy kinds of things. The health department plans to use 5 to 10 ultra-cold freezers across the state to receive the Pfizer shipments and then act as distribution hubs. Officials declined to say where they are located, citing security concerns. In addition, the state is also considering direct shipment of the vaccine pallets, which hold 975 doses, to large hospitals across the state, which then would distribute the doses among clinics. We're working with every single hospital in the state of Louisiana, Welsh said. Who gets it first? The state has created 3 phases of distribution based on a person's likelihood of exposure to the coronavirus and risk of severe infection. Frontline healthcare workers will be first. Louisiana has about 150,000 healthcare workers. It is still unclear how many vaccines the state will get in the first shipment from Pfizer, but it won't be enough to cover all of them. In weekly meetings with federal officials, Welsh has heard everything from 30,000 to 200,000 doses, which would cover between 15,000 and 100,000 people for the 2-shot vaccine. If there aren't enough vaccines for all of the state's hospitals, those with high COVID-19 numbers in the past month will get priority, according to the state's playbook. Decisions about which frontline workers get the vaccine first are up to the hospitals themselves. But according to Dr. Julio Figueroa, chief of infectious diseases at LSU Health New Orleans, priority for vaccines typically goes to workers who encounter COVID-19 patients most. For instance, healthcare workers in the emergency department would take precedent over doctors who do more consulting work, he said. After the Pfizer shipment, the health department expects the vaccine from Moderna, Inc., which uses an approach similar to the Pfizer vaccine, to be shipped next. The Moderna vaccine doesn't need to be stored at the same ultra-low temperatures, so for that phase, the state will send the vaccine directly to CVS and Walgreens pharmacies, which will administer it to nursing home staff and residents, according to the state plan. Also included in the first phase of vaccine distribution are nearly anyone working in a healthcare setting, corrections officers, firefighters, the state's COVID-19 response team, including the governor's office and the governor's office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, law enforcement, food packaging workers, and people over the age of 65 who have certain health conditions. Phase 2 of distribution includes teachers, grocery store employees, maintenance workers, postal workers, mortuary personnel, government and military workers, and some other essential workers. Adults of any age with pre-existing conditions and incarcerated people will also be in this cohort. After that, vaccines will be available to anyone who wants one. Hassig said that's not likely until the middle of 2021 at the earliest. To get to the healthy 30-year-old who does not have an essential job or doesn't have anything to increase priority status, it will be 6 months after the first vaccines come out, Hassig predicted. At that point, vaccines may be available at pharmacies, clinics, doctors' offices, civic centers, and high schools. The health department has identified 571 sites where shots can be given. Whether or not vaccinations stop the spread of the virus depends on how many people take it and how effective the vaccines are. Pfizer said its vaccine is more than 90% effective based on its preliminary trial results, but the data is not yet available for peer review. To reach herd immunity, in which the virus hits a dead end because there are not enough infected people to spread it around, some models predict between 60% and 70% of people need protection. With a high effectiveness rate like Pfizer's 90%, around 3/4 of the population would need the shot for herd immunity, or 3.5 million people in Louisiana. If the other vaccines are even 10% less effective, or if Pfizer is less effective than initial reports, an additional 448,000 would need to be vaccinated. With a community the size of Louisiana, even if we hit 60% to 70%, it may be because we're hitting higher numbers in some places and lower numbers in other places, said Charles Stoker, a healthcare economist at Tulane who studies vaccine policy efficiency. And if you live in a place where the vaccine coverage isn't that good, then you're going to be less protected. We may have these pockets where we'll see outbreaks. It is also still not known whether the vaccine will require a yearly update like the flu vaccine. In the meantime, experts said masks and social distancing remain the best weapons against the virus. While we are waiting for the vaccine, the mask works really well, Hassig said. We can point to countries that don't have a vaccine either, but their economies are open because they put the mask on. Heavy lifting is the next article. Defense hasn't backed down from hard work necessary to keep number 25 Cajuns flying high. By Kevin Foote. UL junior cornerback Eric Garrer was asked how high he'd rank the defense's performance in the 27-20 win over Arkansas State to the other games this season. After briefly considering his options, Garrer put it second behind the 24-20 win over UAB on October 23rd. The truth is, it wasn't an easy question to answer. There were many legitimate answers, including the 31-14 win over Iowa State. Now with the number 25 ranked Raging Cajuns needing a win in Saturday's 1 p.m. showdown with South Alabama to qualify for a third consecutive Sun Belt Conference championship game, don't be surprised if the defense is counted upon heavily once again. That's quite a statement for a unit that's lost its coordinator during the offseason when Ron Roberts left for Baylor, replacing him with safeties coach Patrick Toney. Coach Toney's done a real nice job this year. He's done a real good job of leading the staff and also leading the players, Coach Billy Napier said. We've got real high expectations and really high standards with how we play defense around here, regardless of who we play or when we play. The secret to the unit's success is a combination of personnel and preparation. In one way, it's a pretty simple process. He puts it in the perfect position to make plays, senior linebacker Farrah Gardner said of Toney. It's just up to us to go make them. We're doing what we're taught to do. On the other hand, it takes a lot of study time to get to that point. Take the Big Three interception game against Texas State, for example. Fourth-year junior safety Braylon Trahan picked off quarterback Tyler Vitt on the third play of the game. On a lot of his interceptions, he knows the signals the quarterback gives his receivers, and he's able to make his decisions based off that, Gardner explained. The first interception he had against Texas State, the quarterback gave his receiver a signal for the glance route, and Braylon just sat on it and was able to pick the ball off. It's the stuff that y'all don't see that goes into the game that allows us to make plays. It also takes a certain level of feistiness, at least in Garrer's case. Listed at 5'9" and 176 pounds, Garrer looks like a tempting target for 50-50 passes to tall receivers. But typically, Garrer wins the battle. Everybody's going to try to come at me because I'm short, Garrer said. I just go out there and try to play big every play. He has 20 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 2 breakups on the season. Eric, man, what a competitor, Napier said. The guy's 5'9" and change. He's a very detailed technician and has good football IQ, great instincts. I think Coach Lamar Morgan has done an exceptional job of developing Eric. He's taken the next step over the last 2 years. We go against him every day in practice, and no surprise to me, not only did he pick them off, but he also just made a lot of plays in 50-50 ball situations where he's getting the ball out. Garrer says Toney and Morgan are constantly challenging the secondary. We do a good job in practice and in film study, Guerra said. We're watching for formations and the routes they do with the game plan for the week. Coach Tony and Coach Morgan are always preaching about winning the junction points, the one-on-ones. Any one-on-ones we have, we've got to win those. We take that to heart and we do great with that. We do drills and practice to get better at that, and we just go into the game and execute. Guerra said Morgan's success goes beyond football. He does a great job of teaching us the technique that he wants us to play that's going to be good for us on Saturdays, Guerra said. He really doesn't care about football, really. He really cares about us being men, about our life. That's what it's all about. It's not really about football, because at the end of the day, football's not going to be here for long. Another big key to the defense's success is redshirt junior linebacker Lorenzo McCaskill, replacing last year's leading tackler Jacques Boudreau in style. For the season, McCaskill has 61 tackles and 2 sacks. He's definitely taken his game to the next level, Gardner said. I feel like Lorenzo is a great player and a great leader for this team. He comes in and puts his head down and works hard. He's one of the hardest workers on this team. Great leader, great guy to go. I am glad to have him in my corner. I'm glad to be able to play next to him, and he's going to be great for this team in the future. While Napier would love for his offense to take some pressure off the defense, safety Percy Butler said the defense accepts the burden. That makes us stronger, he said. When it's time for the games at the end of the season that really count, we know we can come back from situations like that. We already know how to handle that. Nobody's going to get down. We know what we're going to do in those situations. It's really making us stronger. And in Gardner's mind anyway, UL's defense still hasn't reached its goals this season. The sky's the limit for this defense, he said. We have ball hawks on the back end. I love our linebacking group. Our rotation is really great. And I love our D-line. Our D-line comes in there executing and they play hard. I love playing on this defense. We haven't played our best ball yet. We haven't gotten a shutout yet. We still haven't met a lot of our goals that we set at the beginning of the season. We still have plenty of time to meet those guys. I believe that this is the defense that can do it. Next sports article, Forgive the Stumbling, is LSU players should be back in time versus Arkansas. Tigers Open Week provided a favorable window. The Tigers Open Week provided a favorable window for quarantining players' recovery, by Brooks Kubena. The Southeastern Conference's commissioner doesn't scour the internet for suggestions on how to reschedule the league's games that have been postponed because of coronavirus. Greg Sankey made that clear Wednesday, a few hours after the SEC announced Georgia's game at Missouri this Saturday will be postponed because of an outbreak within the Missouri program. It was the 4th such postponement for the league this week. Also gone are Auburn, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and LSU, Alabama. Only 3 games, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Florida, Ole Miss, South Carolina, remain, and Kentucky's viral outbreak also casts its own game into jeopardy. The loss of LSU, Alabama was the biggest blow. CBS earmarked this year's game for its primetime broadcast Saturday evening after the 3rd round of the Masters. And according to AL.com, CBS will no longer broadcast an SEC game that day. The game was also expected to bring substantial revenue to LSU's athletic department. Even with Tiger Stadium only operating at 25% capacity with local COVID-19 restrictions, LSU already had to relocate its home game against Missouri to Columbia because of Hurricane Delta. And if the Alabama game is not rescheduled, LSU will only get to play 3 of its 5 originally scheduled home games. Will the game be played at all this year? Rescheduling the rivalry that has gone uninterrupted since 1963 is complicated because both LSU and Alabama have used up their 1 open week of the season. Sankey said the SEC has discussed moving postponed games to December 19th, but that date is also complicated because it's the date of the SEC championship and number 1 Alabama 6-0, is likely to play in it. LSU has already used up the December 12th date the SEC set aside for such situations for its postponed game against Florida. However, Alabama still has December 12th available. Could Alabama move its November 12th game or November 21st game against Kentucky to December 12th, while LSU moves its November 21st game at Arkansas to December 19th? Columnist Scott Rabelais suggested this option on Monday, and WNXX-FM 104.5 host Matt Moscona posted a similar plan to Twitter on Tuesday. Could any other series of mix and match combos free up a weekend for the Tigers and Tide? There are plenty of scheduling suggestions on Twitter, Sankey said on the SEC's weekly teleconference, but I don't run the league based on Twitter, just so you know. Oh, there'll still be plenty more suggestions, even while a large contingent of LSU fans have declared the struggling Tigers 2-3 just might benefit from not having to play an Alabama team that entered the week a 3-touchdown favorite. LSU coach Ed Orgeron says his team still wants the game to happen. Just when could it be played? Your guess is as good as mine, Orgeron said Wednesday. I've heard a lot of things, which I don't know, but whenever they tell us to play, we'll be ready to play. Meanwhile, a large chunk of LSU's football roster remains quarantined. The team dipped below the SEC's 53-man roster requirement after a small number of players tested positive for COVID-19 last week, forcing several others into mandatory 14-day quarantine. The large quarantine number is what forced the Alabama game to be postponed. Only 3 to 4 players tested positive for the virus, according to multiple sources. True freshman TJ Finley was LSU's only scholarship quarterback available, a source confirmed, and the Tigers also didn't have any scholarship tight ends available. The wide receiver position was also among those affected. The outbreak reportedly originated at a Halloween party, but Orgeron said Wednesday that he knew nothing of that. I heard it, he said, but not from any of our players. But I can ask them, and obviously I told them yesterday that if that is going on, I don't want them at any parties. We have a rule, no bars during the season, no bar rooms during the season. I think guys are going to want to go to parties, but they got to be careful, you know? The number of players in quarantine was troubling enough for LSU to begin preparing for the Arkansas game on Monday instead of Alabama. At the time, Orgeron said they didn't believe the game was going to happen. Then on Tuesday, there was brief hope, and they switched back to the Alabama preparation before the final word finally arrived just before Tuesday's practice. It's still possible that LSU's game at Arkansas next week is also in jeopardy. When Florida had to postpone its game against LSU because of an outbreak within its program, the Gators had to also postpone its game against Missouri that following week because players were still in 14-day quarantine. LSU's open week seems to have provided a favorable window. Orgeron said he's heard the quarantine players will be back sometime next week and pegged next Tuesday or Wednesday as the days he'll have an answer. We'll have a lot more players at practice next week than we have this week, he said. The LSU coaching staff has been forced to get creative with the organization of practices. So with so many players unavailable, walk-ons have replaced starters. Defensive linemen who have never snapped a football have had to flip over to offense and play center. Punter Zach Von Rosenberg, a former minor league pitcher, played second-team quarterback. Players in quarantine are still allowed to work out by themselves, Orgeron said. They can run and lift, but they can't be at practice. They can still game plan for Arkansas by participating in team meetings through video conferencing technology. Orgeron still said Tuesday was one of our best practices, a day that he had shortened to help boost energy. A reporter skeptically asked about Von Rosenberg playing quarterback, and Orgeron insisted that his punter played well. Look, he threw a touchdown pass yesterday, and the whole team was cheering, Orgeron said. Seriously, it was good. LSU's band of replacements will have to sustain the rest of the week, Orgeron said. They'll practice first down situations on Wednesday, third downs Thursday, and the team will have the weekend off like they do during any other open date. Hopefully the schedule stays the same, Orgeron said. We'll play Arkansas next week and we'll be ready to play. Oh, the next reading is about the deaths, the funerals today in the Acadiana area. Linda Armand, St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church at 2 p.m. Leedy Broussard, Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church, 700 South Broadway Street in Erath at 11 a.m. O'Donnell Luella O'Donnell, St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church at noon. Percy Ortego, Sunrise Chapel at Walter's Funeral Home, 2424 North University Avenue in Lafayette at 2 p.m. And Wayne Pipkin, David Funeral Home Chapel, 1101 Trotter Street in New Iberia at 2:30 p.m. Today in History by the Associated Press. Today is November 12th, the 317th day of 2020. There are 49 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history. On November 12, 1948, former Japanese Premier Hideki Tojo and several other World War II Japanese leaders were sentenced to death by a war crimes tribunal. On this date, in 1927, Joseph Stalin became the undisputed ruler of the Soviet Union, as Leon Trotsky was expelled from the Communist Party. In 1942, the World War II naval battle of Guadalcanal began. The Allies ended up winning a major victory over Japanese forces. In 1975, Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas retired because of failing health, ending a record 36-year term. In 1977, the city of New Orleans elected its first Black mayor, Ernest Dutch Morial, the winner of a runoff. In 1982, Yuri V. Andropov was elected to succeed the late Leonid I. Brezhnev as General Secretary of the Soviet Communist Party's Central Committee. In 1987, the American Medical Association issued a policy statement saying it was unethical for a doctor to refuse to treat someone solely because that person had AIDS or was HIV positive. In 1990, Japanese Emperor Akihito formally assumed the chrysanthemum throne. In 1994, Olympic track and field gold medalist Wilma Rudolph died in Brentwood, Tennessee at age 54. In 1996, a Saudi Boeing 747 jetliner collided shortly after taking off from New Delhi, India, with a Kazakh Ilyushin, excuse me for that pronunciation, 76 cargo plane, killing 349 people. In 2001, American Airlines Flight 587, an Airbus A300, headed to Dominican Republic, crashed after takeoff from New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport, killing all 260 people on board and 5 people on the ground. In 2009, Army psychiatrist Major Nidal Malik Hassan was charged with 13 counts of premeditated murder in the Fort Hood, Texas shooting rampage. Hassan was later convicted and sentenced to death. No execution date has been set. 10 years ago, the Supreme Court allowed the Pentagon to continue preventing openly gay people from serving in the military while a federal appeals court reviewed the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. The policy was rescinded in 2011. 5 years ago, twin suicide bombings killed at least 43 people in southern Beirut suburb that was a stronghold of the militant Shiite Hezbollah group. Islamic State claimed responsibility. 1 year ago, the Supreme Court said a survivor of the Newtown, Connecticut school shooting and relatives of the victims could pursue their lawsuit against Remington Arms, the maker of the rifle that was used to kill 26 people. Today's birthday. Singer Brian Hyland is 77. Actor-playwright Wallace Shawn is 77. Rock musician Booker T. Jones, Booker T and the MGs, is 76. Sportscaster Al Michaels is 76. Singer-songwriter Neil Young is 75. Rock musician Donald Buck Dharma Roser, Blue Oyster Cult, is 73. Senator Jack Reed, a Democrat from Rhode Island, is 71. Country gospel singer Barbara Fairchild is 70. Actor Megan Mullally is 62. Actor Vincent Irizarry is 61. Olympic gold medal gymnast Nadi Comaneci is 59. Rock musician David Ellefson is 56. Retired Major League Baseball All-Star Sammy Sosa is 52. Figure skater Tanya Harding is 50. Actor Rebecca Wisocki is 49. Rebecca Wisocki is 49. Actor Radha Mitchell is 47. Actor Lourdes Benedicto is 46. Actor Tamala Jones is 46. Actor Angela Watson is 46. Singer Tevin Campbell is 44. Actor Ashley Williams is 42. Actor Cote de Pablo is 41, I'm sorry. Actor Ryan Gosling is 40. Contemporary Christian musician Chris Huffman is 40. Actor Anne Hathaway is 38. Pop singer Omarion is 36. NBA All-Star Russell Westbrook is 32. Folk rock musician Griffin Goldsmith Dawes is 30. Actor Macy Crutherd is 28. And last but not least, everyone's horoscope. Aries, work towards a common goal with a loved one. A romantic gesture will help you put your differences aside, paving the way for healthy solutions. Taurus, being well-informed will help you make better decisions. Keep personal information to yourself. Don't mislead someone or make promises you can't keep. Gemini, an opportunity to demonstrate what you have to offer will come your way. Be precise and leave nothing to chance. Be honest and efficient. Cancer, say what's on your mind. You are better off discussing matters thoroughly instead of taking physical action to prove your point. Look for ways to compromise. Leo, an opportunity will cause friction with a loved one. Think matters through before you make a decision that might jeopardize a meaningful relationship. Don't take risks with your health. Virgo, monitor what everyone around you is doing to avoid ending up in a compromising position. Issues will arise if you make changes to your daily routine. Libra, observation will help you avoid jumping to conclusions. Spend more time perfecting your skills and less time butting heads with someone who doesn't share your opinion. Scorpio, take part in a dialogue concerning where and how you do your job. Look at the pros and cons of the situation that involves the young and old people in your life. Sagittarius, put more effort into your professional goals. Consider trends and market your skills to fill a niche. Make changes that will help you improve your health, appearance, and lifestyle. Capricorn, sit back, settle in, and make changes that will help you be more productive. Don't worry about what others do. Follow the path that leads to peace of mind and a better quality of life. Aquarius, go over your finances, investments, and personal contracts. Make adjustments that will help you stabilize your position. Do what's best for you. A complimentary person will have ulterior motives. Pisces, a deal may look promising, but before you decide to team up with someone, consider how well you get along and if you share the same beliefs and objectives. All right, guys, that's the end of the news read. Thank you so much for letting me read to you. Please wear your masks and keep your distance and stay safe out there.